sound. But here we go again. So today's topic is treat addiction recovery like a phobia. For those who are new to the channel, my name's Ashley Bloxham. I'm a therapist. I specialise in childhood and trauma, but I also am an addictions therapist. So I link the two together on the channel. And I've overcame addiction. I think that's really important. And also, I know what it's like to have loved ones who've also struggled in addiction. And I've studied it a lot. Too much, probably. Right, so today's topic is treat recovery like a phobia. Hi, peace and joy. I just want to say, Gums, thanks for holding the fort there, for God's sake. I don't know what's going on with me phone. It's just forever cutting out my sound and I can't get it back on. Anyways, let's get on track. So treat addiction recovery like a phobia. So as a therapist, if I have somebody who comes through the door with a phobia, we're treating in a very specific way. And I was thinking about how addiction almost feels like a phobia. So, if you've got somebody who's struggling with spiders, they don't want to be scared of spiders, especially if they come to therapy for it, let's be real. They don't want to be scared of spiders, but they are. And I think that's what it feels like an addiction. You're so terrified of being sober or clean or whatever you want to call it, not doing the thing, because it's so much uncertainty around it. How am I going to possibly do that? That life is too much right now. So we end up continuing. So if there's somebody who's stuck in active addiction, what I want to do is I want you to treat it as if it's a phobia. So how might that look? So in counselling, we do exposure therapy. And that looks like slowly exposing yourself to the thing you're fearful of. So in this sense, it's living a sober life because there's a lot of uncertainty. So start to get certain in it by just doing one little thing. So that might look like, for an example, but apply it to any addiction. Say you're an alcoholic, maybe you go to something where there's social drinking and you don't drink for the first hour. So you're around people who are drinking, you're not drinking, you're just exposing yourself to what it might be like to be a recovered alcoholic and reflect on it. The reflection is super important in rewiring our brains. And just slowly widen that circle. So another example might be, say you've got a drug addiction and you're used to filling your life up and you couldn't imagine yourself not being a drug addict. Pick up a hobby or an interest, and the first point that you would do the line, or however you get it into your system, inject it, whatever, the first time you do that, do the hobby and interest completely sober for an hour and then reflect on it. And what you do with exposure therapy is you slowly widen the circle. So you start off with one thing, just half an hour, and then you expose yourself to being a recovered addict in another layer. And you just keep layering on top of each other. And what this means, if you're in active addiction and you're really not quite ready to stop yet, it means you're still taking steps towards your sobriety. And the thing is, as well, the more that we do things and we realise it's okay, the more self-trust we gain. We think, actually, I can trust myself. And the more you just commit to doing one little step towards your recovery, the more that self-trust is going to grow. Because let's be real, in addiction, we don't really trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves not to ring the dealer. We don't trust ourselves not to go on porn or gambling or whatever it is. Anyways, let's see what people are saying. So, Gums, hi. Thanks everyone who came on before when it cut out, by the way. Hello from the UK, Smithy, Geordie Lass, I am. Hello from Newcastle. Terminator is saying, hi, I just celebrated 10 years sobriety with a shot of tequila. If that's what you do to celebrate, that's what you do to celebrate. And look, the thing is, whatever you need to do for your sobriety, if you're like, I'm going to celebrate with a shot once a year, and that's what you do, then, and it works for you, that's fine. Just do what you got to do. Levy is saying, who am I? So my name is Ashley. I'm a therapist. I'm like specialised in childhood, in trauma, but also an addictions counsellor. So Gums is saying, it's easy to do what you know than to change. Change is scary and survival is scary. Yeah, absolutely is. I'm just going to make you moderator, by the way, Gums. Yeah, so it is really scary to change, and I think this is what was making us think about how it's a phobia. We're almost like so terrified of what will life look like when we don't have the addiction. We're terrified of the cravings. We're terrified of sitting there feeling like crap for the first few weeks. We're scared of how do we socialize, especially if that's where we get our confidence from. And even if it's not where you get your confidence from, often it's the only way we know how to interact with the world. So yeah, it is scary. And that's why just doing little like testing of the waters can be really good. 1 minute, Raz is saying, good advice, keep up the work. Thank you. 1 minute. Oh, is that 1 minute? Oh, well, you're getting one minute. Can't play a game of pool without a beer in your hand, Terminator. Yeah, so maybe that's the first thing that you do. Like you tackle, just I'm going to have my first game of pool without a beer in the hand. It doesn't need to be extreme. But remember, we're on a trajectory. So start off there and do that for the first however many times. Then the next time I'm going to do 2 games of pool and just slowly but surely layer upon that. I accidentally pressed the like button. I wasn't even listening to what she was saying. Oh, it's all right. Meant to be. Hello from Puerto Rico. Hello, Chris. How you doing? So could this apply also to smoking? Matt's saying absolutely. So that's one of the best things you can do with smoking addiction. So try and tackle the habit. So if there's for smoking, and again it's the same for anything. Like this is good for things like porn and smoking, but you can do it with anything. But if there's a time where you certainly have a cigarette, so for me, as soon as I got in the car, I was smoking my unbelief rollie, that was it. And I couldn't, the thought of not driving without a rollie was horrible. So that's what I did first. I just started doing drives without smoking. And it was really distressing at first. But when you're just testing the waters, you've not got the pressure of never on top of you. So yeah, it's really hard not to have a cigarette when you're smoking, or it was for me. Sorry, a cigarette when you're smoking, a cigarette when you're driving. But I also knew when I finished driving, the first thing I can do is have a cigarette. So it's like you're just slowly but surely testing the waters and then reflecting on it and realizing actually you can get through a craving, or testing the waters of what am I going to do to get through the craving. So I'm going to put some banger beats on. I'm going to do something. So yeah, you can. 104 days sober today, Raymunda. How are you finding it? That is you've got through a big shift there as well. So yeah, what's your top tip as well for people who are on early recovery? Is addictious analogous to attachment? I am effectively addicted to my children. Yeah, I mean, addiction. So what I thought you were going to say is it related to your attachment, like when you're younger? So what addiction is so if you think of it like your childhood is whatever goes on in your childhood directly impacts how you are as an adult. And if you've had a childhood, and let's be real, the majority of people have, who are millennials and older, if you've had a childhood which has been quite traumatic, then that's going to impact you in later life. Now, what addiction is it's a solution to whatever impact that's had on your life. So if you've had a really crap, hard childhood, which as a generation we have, because kids were seen, not heard, kids were like hit, kids were left to cry it out. Like that's not how children are supposed to be raised. So as a generation we're traumatized, but like especially if you've had worse trauma, what that means is when you're grown up, it's really difficult to feel comfortable in your own skin and to feel comfortable around other people. So what happens is people lean into addiction because that makes them feel a sense of relief that they didn't realize they needed. So what I would say is if you're struggling, like you've got an over attachment to your children, that's probably just another way that it's manifested. So addiction might be one, that might be another. But also, I don't think you can love your children too much, is what I'll also say. It's just about not losing yourself in the process. Hi, shout out, Sweet Sin. I will absolutely give you a shout out. Can you say Conor McGregor? I mean, I can say Conor McGregor, but I'm from Newcastle, so I don't know why that would sound... I don't know if you're thinking that I'm like from somewhere I'm not. Right, addiction is the key to numbing the pain and cancelling out noise in your head. Yeah, it is. It literally is. It's an adaptation to whatever's going on underneath. And the thing is, if we've had childhood trauma, we're grown up. So like when you're grown up where something is the norm, you don't really realise it. So you're probably not realising that you're absolutely desperate for a sense of relief. And then you start exploring drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, and you get that sense of relief. And you don't realise that you're in more of a need of that relief than maybe somebody who's just doing it recreationally, until it's too late and then you're in addiction. But yeah, it does numb out pain. And often we don't even realise we're doing that. And that's part of the process of recovery, is working out, why do I have the addiction in the first place? Let's see what else people are saying. I've been diagnosed with split personality disorder and I'm addicted to ket. Yeah, I mean, I was addicted to ketamine, so it's fucking quite solid addiction. I didn't realise how addictive it was until I was very, very addicted to it. But yeah, that makes sense as well. So split personality disorder. So look, guys, disorders, there's a huge link between disorders and addiction. And the reason why is because disorders tend to come from a chaotic childhood. So I was talking about like childhood trauma or like childhood chaos or maybe bullying or whatever it is, where your childhood's been disrupted and you haven't had your needs met in whatever way. So if you think of it like disorders, you've got genes. If you think of genes like the gun, and then you think of environment as the trigger. So that's what sets the gene off. So if we've got things like bipolar or whatever, it's because of childhood trauma. Now, personality disorders are even more so. So again, I think it's a process, bigger. And what I had to go through as well is learning to love yourself. And I would argue that if you're addicted to ket, and that sounds like you're in active addiction, one of the best things you can do is learn to love yourself, regulate your emotion, start to feel comfortable in your own skin while still addicted to ket. So like, think of that as part of your recovery. And then obviously get support around the ket. If you want it, I can give that for free, which is, you can go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. But yeah, it makes absolute sense that you've got a split personality disorder and addicted to ket. And the thing with ketamine as well, which I've realised since getting off my addiction, is it's a sedative. It numbs your brain. And when you're dealing with a disorder, your brain's quite loud, especially if you're dealing with struggle and childhood trauma on top of that. So yeah. Grady's saying, looking good this morning, Buttercup, thank you. I'm pulling out my inner 90s vibes. Right, let's see. We've got loads of compliments. Thanks, guys. So Coca-Cola, the first thing I learned to do while driving was smoke. Yeah, I used to love a cigarette when I was driving. That was the first thing I tackled. So I was trying for a baby. So what I did is I knew I was going to have to quit smoking. So I started tackling all the habits first. So that was the first habit. Then after food, that's another one. There's a few afters that we like to have, we like to smoke things. So just try and tackle that and try and do something to distract yourself and work out what distractions work best. Maybe it's breathing, maybe it's putting the music on, whatever. Chris, cigarettes was really hard to kick, still crave, especially when drinking coffee. Yeah, look, I quit smoking quite a few times and I keep going back to it. I've ended up vaping and I'm going to be stopping again with my addiction group. So, yeah, it is really hard. And it's one of them things where I got really cocky with, where I got cocky. So I went on holiday, I'd quit, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going on holiday. I can have a vape on holiday. No, you can't. Don't know what you were thinking, Ashley. So yeah, it's really hard. It's chemically addictive as well. So Matt, yeah, I'm just asking for another. For me, one day I was smoking and someone else was smoking and blew smoke towards it. It nearly made me vomit and I never smoked again. Yeah, sometimes we'll have a thing that just, we'll have the point of no return, the thing that makes us want to stop. And if we don't have that thing that makes us want to stop, so you know, sometimes it's hitting rock bottom. For me, it was looking at my child thinking, I'm a mother in active addiction. Like, I don't want that for my son. If we don't have a thing like that, then what we can do is create a thing like that. So actively sit down and think about, okay, what's the positives? Because if you're in active addiction and you're not ready to stop, definitely think about the positives. Because you don't want to gaslight yourself. And then think of the negatives. And then you can think about what would your future look like? What could you do if you weren't an addict? How would your life be better? And then with the positives, you can actually use them positives and think about, okay, how can I get these positives in something else? So that gives you a bit of a roadmap for something to do when you'd come to quit. Why does your English sound weird, Jules? It's because I'm from Newcastle, where English sounds weird. I think England is just weird, full of weird sounding English, to be honest with you though. Like, as soon as you go north, like, not even north, like, as soon as you get outside of, like, London, it just gets weirder. Gums is saying addiction is basically a dependent of a chemical imbalance in your brain. Yeah, and that is why there's almost an unlimited different types of addiction. It really is, and it's about working out why do I have an imbalance in the brain. It's also about recognizing that when you have an addiction, that's going to cause an imbalance in your brain. So that really matters for when you're thinking about the early stages of recovery. Your brain's going to be a bit fucked, and that's why it feels horrendous and why a lot of people struggle to get past that first little stint. So what you can do then is recognize that your dopamine's going to be fucked. So dopamine's about motivation. So you're not going to have much motivation to do it. And actually the only motivation you're going to have is to get the thing you're addicted to. But what you can do is you can lean into like oxytocin. So do things that make you produce oxytocin, like touch is a good one, but anything warms, like cute little, I don't know, buy like loads of cute little green teas in or something like that. Be around people who you like, so try and make like little arrangements, small ones with people you love. Be around pets, borrow a pet if you can. I used to borrow my sister's dog, so yeah. Oh, yeah, Gums. So guys just said to Gums, don't worry about the trolls. Yeah, I like the trolls. The trolls are good. So the trolls are basically they actually put more chat in because they're just hammering me thing with chat, and they actually drive the channel out to people who need us. So trolls are helping. So the more trolls, the better. You're all welcome. This is an unlimited topic. Another one is food addiction, Matt. Yeah, it's all the same. Exactly what Gums just said. It's just a chemical imbalance. That's part of it. And also a trigger. So food is really difficult. I've had to tackle food. And it's the same as what I was saying with like tackling the habits. But instead of habits, what I did is I tackled one step at a time. So I looked at my day and I was thinking, right, okay, I'm just eating loads of shite. First of all, as well, knowledge is key. So the more we know about the addiction and the impacts it'll have, the better. So first of all, what I started doing was watching loads of podcasts around the gut microbiome and learning about like the gut and my mental health and all these different things. So knowledge first. Second of all, I thought, right, what one thing can I do which is going to be a super easy change from eating loads of shite? And that was, for me, was breakfast. So I made a commitment that I'm going to have a healthy breakfast, and it was super easy, just like avocado, whole wheat toast, and scrambled eggs made in the pan. I just used to add different ingredients, and I started off like that, did that for a month, then layer on top of it. So if we're creating a habit, we do one thing small, easy, and praise ourselves for it. Then when we've got that as a habit, you add on another little habit. So for me, the next step was making a one pot meal for me tea. And that was just like, I literally went on social media and found like 3 ingredient one pot meals, and it was like tomatoes, garlic, and feta cheese. Put it into the oven, and that was like a pasta sauce. So like, just then once I did one pot meals, I did something else, and you just layer on top of it. And you can do this for addiction recovery as well. Just anything, it applies to anything. Mr. Cowan, been on painkillers for 9 years of osteoarthritis. Now my liver fucked. I want to stop taking them, but just thinking about the pain if I do, yeah. So what I would say, Mr. Cowan, is this would be something better done with healthcare professionals, potentially a pain clinic. So you can go to your GP. I don't know where you're based, but in England you go to your GP and they would ask to be referred to a pain clinic. And what they would do, so with prescription meds like pain meds, if you're taking pain meds, when you're taking them, obviously you take them for pain, so you've got that pain, and then when you remove them, you're going to have rebound pain, so it's going to be twice as much. So what they do is they reduce it down glacially slow, like really, really slow. And they would also introduce new ways and methods to manage your pain. So I would say that would be the best thing. And being addicted to painkillers, there is no shame in that. They're used to it. So that is absolutely the route that I would suggest to take. Yeah. I'm honestly turning up the volume and dozing off to you. I love that. Right, Mentor J, hey girl, how are you? Love the content and advice means a lot. Also love your eyes, by the way. Thank you, I appreciate that. Nothing but weirdos with profile pictures. Someone like me gets the girls like her, I promise. Teddy, look, let's be real. This is not where I'd be coming to find me husband. Do you know what I mean? Like, yous aren't even a set of real names. Yous are just like fucking, like, we've got someone Indigo 111 hyphens J7F. Like, ooh, that sounds like someone I'm into. Come on, guys. And I've got a boyfriend. Super happy. But if you want to give it a shot, be my guest. It's not Irish or Scottish. I'm from Newcastle. Right, let's see what else. Oh yeah, Guy is saying if anyone wants any support, please go to my website, School of Addiction, or comment on my videos. Yeah, it's all free, guys, as well. I offer free support. Yeah, I'm doing a free addiction group and I do a free one-off one-to-one. So if anyone needs that, do get in touch. Beardy Prick, what would you say to someone who can't stop blaming themselves for their mother's death when they told their mother to stop their alcohol addiction and she did without any help and died? Beardy Prick, what I would say is that is such a common, it's so common for people not to know that. And it's not, what we if we don't know something, we can only go off what we know. It's not taught enough. And the narrative is, and if you want to put blame where it should be, is the narrative is we shame and stigmatize addiction, and that is done on a systemic level. And it doesn't sit there and treat addiction like a welfarist issue. So everybody just knows addiction is wrong, you shouldn't be doing it, etc. And all we know is to shame people, because let's be real, policy shames people for addiction. So if policy shaming people for addiction and we're growing up with that narrative, obviously we're just going to think all I need to do is tell them to stop. What we don't know is harm reduction. We don't know things like alcohol is fatal. I didn't know that until I started training to learn it. So we can't blame ourselves for something that a society has set up, this stigma, which means that there's barriers to understanding addiction and it's supporting people correctly with addiction. So the other thing is somebody who's dealt with somebody who struggles with addiction, it's really, really hard to watch someone go through that, and acting out of love and support and, let's be real, also frustration is you doing your best. So I would say doing your best is not something to blame yourself for, and doing your best within something that a society has made more difficult to do correctly is also hard to do. It's no one's fault. What I will say is there's more stuff I could say on that specifically, and I would like to, but it's around my own personal story, and like if you would like to have a one-to-one, I'm happy to hash it out, and also we can look at kind of breaking that down, BAD, so because I know what that feels like as well. So if you want to get in touch, please go on my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. But yeah, addiction's severely misunderstood on a systemic level, and it's really sad because the people who are suffering are the people who need help, and it's really hard for loved ones to know how to support people. It really is. It's a really difficult thing to deal with, and you know, even before I became a addictions counsellor, I didn't know how to support people with addiction at all, and yeah, it's hard. It's Courtney. I never knew you could die from stopping drinking until I had a grand mal seizures and almost died. Yeah, that is something that should be taught in schools. I believe also benzocaines. Yeah, benzocaines you can die from, and alcohol. And this is the thing, like I don't want to say you can't die off going cold turkey with heroin, because we really don't know how our body's going to react, but generally you can't die off going cold turkey off heroin, yet you can off alcohol. Yet how many people drink alcohol? And I didn't learn that until I was training for it, and like it's Courtney didn't know that until the stop. So yeah, it is. And this is the thing, it's off seizures, and it's just your body's reliant on it. But society's saying stop drinking. They're not saying stop drinking, also do it safely because it's fatal. Like you see it on all the there's like, this is what I mean by it's on a systemic level. Like you see posters on bus stops saying stop drinking. You see things in the bus that I'm on and it talks about don't drink alcohol when pregnant. Like, can you imagine a pregnant mother terrified to say they've got an addiction and they're seeing these signs like I need to stop drinking, so they just stop drinking completely? Like, it doesn't say stop drinking, also by the way it is fatal to just stop drinking. So we can't sit there blaming ourselves for not understanding that. You have to be a real loser to be addicted to something as weak as alcohol. I mean, I think that alcohol addiction is one of the worst addictions. I really do. And actually, when you're saying to be a loser, somebody who's struggling with addiction, I don't think anybody who, unless the people who've been through it, can understand just how hard of a fight that is. It's really sad. Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think it's very easy to sit here judging someone. It's very easy to sit here judging someone when you as a person have never had to go through that. Because somebody who hasn't been through addiction could not possibly understand what that feels like. And actually, those people, I'm not sure they could really do it, especially coming out of it the other side as well. So I find it quite ironic that you've got somebody who's never had to go through that level of pain doing throwaway comments to somebody who's so much stronger, like saying you're weak. Like, I don't think you realise how fucking strong you have to be to even wake up the next day in addiction and keep going, let alone come out of it the other side. Like, I think, yeah, quite an ironic statement, I would say. Yeah, the troll doesn't bother me, but thank you. After going through addiction, a troll is a minuscule problem. Yeah, they don't bother me, but I do find it really ironic when people say, like, just the wording that you have to be weak to go through addiction. I actually don't think that I don't think people realise, and I think it's so strange that as a society we judge people for addiction or recovered addicts, and you're like, hang on a minute. Don't think you realise just what that entails, but okay, judges for it. Sure. Gums, do you remember talking to Frank? They stopped the advert because people was misinformed. I didn't know that, no. Was it talking about stop drinking? What was the thing that they were misinformed about, Gums? Talk to Frank is actually an amazing service if you're in the UK, by the way. I still use it now. So if I do one-to-ones with clients and I need to find out like local services, because I've been like signposting people, I use that, but they know so much knowledge. So if you are in addiction, so say you do have alcohol, what they can do is put you with the right services, but they can also teach you what you need to do. So it's a harm reduction service. Gums, school, he's just a troll. Gunsy, he's just a troll. Anyone with an ounce of sense knows booze is far from a weak drug. I know, do you know what it is? Normally I don't bother with the trolls, but I just wanted to say it because I think sometimes when you're in addiction, you do feel weak. And actually, like, I felt weak when I was in my addiction, so not everyone. I felt like I was weak and why couldn't I just do it? And when I've came out of it, now reflecting on it, I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? So, for example, I really shamed myself for struggling with relapsing when I was an early mom. And I used to really think, oh, I was too weak. I was a really bad mom. And now when I look back at it, like, actually showing up as a mother while struggling with addiction, pretty fucking strong. Not many people could do that. So yeah, and also get sober. So I just wanted to address it because if anyone's sat there feeling weak, I really want you to revamp your idea of what weak is. So yeah. Alcohol detox involves something called Librium. That is a mild benzo, some drug group as Valium, or same drug group as Valium. Yeah, I don't know too much about the detox side of things because as a therapist, I wouldn't touch it. But yeah, that's good to know. There's also like I know you can take different things like vitamin D. I think there's things which that might even be vitamin D, but there's something which can protect your organs. So if you're in active alcohol addiction, you can actually take a tablet which protects your organs while you're drinking. So again, these are all things that we don't know if we're not reaching out for professionals. But what I will say, if there's somebody who's struggling with alcohol and you really don't want to reach out to professionals, and I don't want to like, I want to be realistic and think about harm reduction here. What you can do is just go away and learn about it as much as possible because there's ways you can protect yourself whilst you're drinking and also learn about how to safely come off it if you don't want to do it with a professional, which I will advise that you do because they can give you access to medications which are helpful. Yeah. Guys saying Librium can be addictive though. I've had it myself a few times. I've never had it. I've never even heard of it, to be honest with you, Guy. But this is the thing, like a lot of prescription meds are. So people who've came off heroin and are going to methadone have said that that's addictive. Suboxone, you know. But it's about harm reduction as well. So which one is worse for you, I think. And this is why it's so important you do that with a professional. And learn to love yourself as well. Don't just think about getting rid of the addiction. Learn to feel comfortable in yourself and cultivate a life that you love and learn to love yourself so that you don't end up slipping off. Because when we're reducing down, if everything's still staying the same and you've got a bit of a shit life and you've got a shit relationship with yourself, you're not going to be able to continue down that path. It's going to get harder and harder. So we need to be building our life up around it to scaffold it as well. Librium is the same as diazepam. Yeah, in that case. So yeah, I used to get prescribed lorazepam, which is quite similar. So is it in that kind of category of stuff? Valium is diazepam. I didn't know that. I thought like they were all separate things. So is it just the same group of things then? Well, it's Courtney is saying it was worse than heroin addiction hater. What do you mean it was worse than heroin? Alcohol, do you mean? Right, let's see. So Grandpa Joe, I'm a drug addict and sometimes I think about why am I even alive? I look out my windows thinking how easy I can just fly out of them. I'm so sorry, Grandpa Joe, that's what you're going through. I think it's that desperation, isn't it? That kind of, when you kind of, it's not even desperation. It's like, you get to a point, I think, where you just quietly accept your fate, and it's a really horrible place to be in mentally. Grandpa Joe, if you'd like, I'm doing an addiction group that's starting very soon. It was meant to be next week, but I'm actually doing it the week after because I've got somebody else on board who I'm going to be planning with on Sunday. But you're welcome to come along. And also, I do a free one-to-one. I would say with drug addiction, what I would do and what I said at the beginning of this episode, so I'd go back and watch this on replay. But what I was talking about, so if you're struggling in addiction and you're feeling really shit about yourself, but you don't know how to tackle stopping, then what I would do is slowly but surely get yourself there. So don't think of recovery as I have to stop now. Think of it like a journey, and it starts off before by just building up different, like layering different steps towards your addiction recovery. And I can hash out a plan on how to do that specific for you, Grandpa Joe, if you want. Has anyone got any tips to anyone who, to Grandpa Joe who's feeling like that? I also want to say as well, Grandpa Joe, if you are feeling like you don't want to be here, it is really important to like speak to somebody about that and not just let that continue. You know, it's really common to feel like that in addiction, but also it's worth reaching out, even if that's just to the Samaritans or your crisis team or something like that, but just talking to people and getting support, because often in addiction recovery we're sat there doing it alone, and if we're not able to do it alone, then that's where we reach out to other people, and maybe that's just talking to somebody who you know. So for me, I started opening up first to people who were also in active drug addiction, because I felt like they can understand what it's like. So that was the first time I started opening up, and I found that really helpful. Alcohol isn't as bad as heroin, ketamine, benzos, and all of that other shite that's saying energy worse than crack. I don't know, like, so I was addicted to ketamine, and I'd rather take that sentence over an alcoholic any day. The thing is with alcohol, so I've quit drinking alcohol recently, like since August, and it's been really difficult. And I didn't even have an alcohol problem. That's never been my drug of choice. I used to enjoy a glass of wine, but wasn't like ketamine. But the thing with alcohol is it's just so socially embedded, and it's really, and we have like events around it like New Year's Eve, and just it's just so embedded into society. So, and it's chemically addictive, like it is fatal to remove alcohol. We're not told that when we start drinking. We don't say, by the way, this could be a death sentence if you're likely to get addicted. You don't know if that's going to be you or not, and if it is, by the way, you're going to be too ashamed to reach out for help, and actually can be fatal if you just stop. Like that in itself is, I think, scores it quite high. But then also everybody around you is doing it, so it's really hard to stop. So I would say it's the worst personally. Yeah. And also I think it just, you don't feel like yourself. So if I'm drunk, I don't feel like myself. When I take drugs, I feel like myself still. I feel like I'm in control. But like, it's just like a slightly like, I have a different feeling. Whereas alcohol, I just don't even feel like myself. And if you're struggling with addiction, like alcohol addiction, like you're just not yourself for however long. So yeah, I don't know. Guys and women, just do boxing. Alcohol is in the same level. Alcohol kills slowly and causes the most impact. Yeah, I would think so. I would say it's a carcinogen as well. But Blaze, yeah, do boxing. So I do jiu-jitsu. I've just actually cut my nails off because I'm going back. I had to spray my toe, so I've got my Brazilian fighting hands back ready for tomorrow. But yeah, if you can do some kind of like martial arts or any kind of sport or activity, it's really good for you. Gums, they did. So they weren't able to do any activity when they came out of their addiction because they were in a wheelchair. But Gums learned beatboxing and got really good at it and started competing, but just started off really slow. So just anything where you're learning something new, it's really, really good for you. Yeah. So Troy saying Grandpa Joe gets better, don't give up, mate. Yeah, don't give up, Grandpa Joe. Just I think just reaching out to people, like the fact that you've said something on here is really good. Now reach out like some one-to-one support, whether that's with me or somebody else. It doesn't have to be with me, but I'm happy to do that for free. But yeah, just don't give up. Just think about, instead of giving up, just think about, right, what I'm doing now hasn't been working, so go back to the drawing board. What am I going to do differently? And that's the thing, even when people are relapsing, just think, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board. Just constantly come back, because as soon as we give up, that's when we start accepting our fate, and it's awful. It's such an awful feeling. So you need to not give up and think, right, what we're going to do differently. Who am I going to lean on this time? What different thing am I going to try? Russell is saying hi from South Africa. Hello. On the 17th of Jan, I will be clean for 2 years. I'm a recovering addict of 35 years, going strong and living life to the fullest. I love that for you. I love that for you. This is the thing, Grandpa Joe. If you can get out of addiction, when you get out of your drug addiction, you can, as long as you're doing other work to like learn to regulate your nervous system and self-love, which I know sounds woo-woo, but so fucking important, you will live such a fulfilled life. Like, I guarantee people who are sat here who've overcame addiction love life, because you're so grateful to not be living in that shithole of a life that you used to live in, which is grim as fuck. And you start to buzz off the tiny little things, like buzzing off, I don't know, a sunset. I didn't know that I had it in us to buzz that much off a fucking sunset, but I do. So like, you can get to a place where you're just going to absolutely live life to its fullest, like Russell, because when you've lived in such a grim like life and mindset, you are so grateful that you're not living like that anymore. So we just need to get you to that point where you're going to be so fucking grateful for being a grandpa and just all the boring shit that you never thought you'd have gratitude for. Right. I just hit 7 months this week. Love that for you. That is great. How are you feeling? What's your top tip as well? For some, anybody got any tips for Grandpa Joe, which will help them? I don't even know if you're still on. Hopefully you are, Grandpa Joe. But anyone who's like, when you're at that point where you just like think, I haven't got any more in us to keep going, living this life of addiction, what tips have you got? Because we've all been there when you're in addiction. Yeah, it's Courtney saying that's so true. You respect life so much more after being so close to death. You do. Like, you really appreciate the little things. And me and my best friend, we always say now, and I don't want to insult people who are in active addiction, but we do say this, now that we've overcame it and we're through the other side, like, we're actually quite grateful, because if we had to choose having a life where it's just plain sailing, you don't really know what you've got to be grateful for it. But because our lives are so shit, when you come out of it, you're like, honestly, I'm high on life, because we just didn't imagine that this could be possible. So we love life so much, and we wouldn't if it wasn't for the addiction and what we've been through. Right. 100 push-ups, 100 bazooka jaws, 100 burpees. Yeah, exercise. You can start getting into your fitness. You'll get dopamine and you'll see progress. This is the thing. You don't need to stop your addiction if you're not ready. Obviously, if you want to, great, and you're ready, I love that for you. But if you're not quite ready, what you can do is start thinking, okay, how am I going to improve my life so when I remove the addiction, I've already got a pretty good life? And exercise is a really good thing to do, because as humans, we love progress. So if you can start doing stuff like what JBM is, where you can literally do it in your house and you start to see progress, you'll start to feel good about yourself. And the better you feel about yourself, the more likely you're going to get to a point where you're like, actually, I'm ready to stop, because that drug addiction is not good for us. It's holding us back. Close, you were more fun when you were drinking, though, to be honest. I don't know, I think I can literally create fun out of now, to me. I think that is because I'm just high on life. Me personally, was I more fun when I was drunk? No, I was a knacker. I just used to throw social grenades all the time, just like absolute knacker. Sometimes fun. I'll tell you what wasn't fun, the sheer anxiety the next day though, the BFER, that was not fun. It's Courtney, for a lot of people, when you take away the alcohol or drug, then you have to deal with the real problem. It's not just over. Yeah, you do. And if you think of it like the place I'm at now, where I love life and I'm high on life, that is like, think of it like a destination, but you've got to walk through the woods to get to that destination. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you have to go through it to get there. So you've got to realise that we've had an issue, which has then meant that we started self-medicating with addiction. If we remove the self-medication away, that's going to come out screaming. So we need to deal with that, because if not, we're always going to go back to addiction. So it's important to deal with that. But when we deal with that and we get to a point where we're happy in our own skin, and if you're happy in your own skin, you'll start to tolerate a lot less BS. Like, you won't be wasting your time with dickheads. You'll learn boundaries because you're like, actually, I love myself, so why would I tolerate that rubbish? And you slowly build up, and then you get to a place where you're like, wow, this is paradise. Even when life's throwing curveballs at it is. Shot knowledge is saying nature helped me loads to stop my addiction. Yeah, same. I don't know if that's why I'm so bloody grateful for flowers and sunsets, but it really did. Just going out and sitting in nature as much as possible. GBM, I was high on substances, and then I found now I'm high on life. Yeah, and this is a lot of people who in addiction recovery will say this, but it's not. You have to. Just removing the addiction isn't going to be enough. You've got, like you say, you've got to work through that other stuff. So I don't think addiction recovery is getting rid of the addiction. It's dealing with the root cause of the addiction. That's the recovery that we've got to do. And if you don't do that, you don't address that, then you're just going to relapse. Or if you don't relapse, you're just going to be living a really shit life. So yeah. John Doe saying, I smoke a lot of weed. And Dogfoot is saying, me too, I'll smoke anything that burns, mate. Is that something that you find you're having an issue with or not? Because remember, addiction is a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. If you enjoy smoking weed, then it's not a problem. Ronnie's saying, find the underlying catalyst for sure. Yeah. A good way to start is you can do what's called an ACEs test. ACE little s, so capital ACE little s. And it's something that they use in research and therapists. And basically what it stands for is adverse childhood experiences. And you're 500 times more likely to have addiction if you're scoring 4 or more. So that's a good place to start, and it can give you, okay, this is an idea that what I might need to work with. What I will say is, before you start working on this stuff, learn to regulate your emotions and regulate your nervous system, so that when you come to deal with this stuff, you're able to deal with it without relapsing. Because that's the thing, if we're unearthing traumas and stuff, the root cause, we're actually putting ourselves more at risk of relapse. So work out what's going on, yes, then put a pin in it and work out, right, I'm going to deal with that, so I need to prepare myself to be able to deal with that. Motors, I have BPD. Yeah, so that's again likely from childhood. BPD, I would argue, is one of the toughest to deal with. I know I've got bipolar, and I know like schizophrenia and bipolar are categorized as more difficult, but I actually think BPD is. It's really hard because there's no medications for it. And I know what it feels like to feel absolutely lost in your emotions, and layering not being able to trust people in relationships on top of that is really difficult. And what are you doing for your BPD, KI? And is it something that you're learning to manage and get a hold of? Ashley Hennessy is saying, I have BPD, but I feel okay. I'm 8 days clean a day, guided meditations, grounded exercises, and learn to sit with my emotions and not run from them is helping. One of the best things you can do, so I talked about preparing for dealing with trauma. One of the best preparations you can do is meditation. And if you're like me, and like I'm ADHD, I struggle to sit down and meditate. Mindfulness is the same thing. So look into it and look into the neuroscience behind it. But basically, it strengthens your prefrontal cortex, which your prefrontal cortex is responsible for impulse control and regulating your emotions. So it's your rational thinking. So when we're dealing with addiction, like cravings, and when we're dealing with trauma, what's going to happen is our limbic system is going to be firing up. And what we need to do to counteract that is fire up the prefrontal cortex, and mindfulness is learning to strengthen that. So that's amazing, Ashley. How are you finding it? I think I've seen you've emailed us as well. Is that you, Ashley? Which I'll be getting back to today. But that's amazing. Always keep your head up and stay strong. Jim BM is saying every day is a new day. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, did you email us back? I'd already replied to you. I just saw, yeah, I think I saw your reply come up. So yeah, I'll get back to you today on that. But I love that you've managed to do 8 days. That's amazing. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of right stuff. So yeah. Agent Smith, yeah, that's a great channel. I'll subscribe and help the cause. Yeah, if anyone could give us a subscribe, that is a super free way to help the channel. So yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm also bad at checking my emails. I try and sit down and like do it on me. I think like when I'm doing me lives, try and remember to do me emails. Eric's saying, it sounds like you're miles ahead of America on addiction. No, I think this is miles ahead of most people with addiction, if we're talking about from a policy level. What's really sad is the way that I'm talking about addiction is rooted in research. So I've studied it right up to PhD level. Now, what is really frustrating is we've got the war against drugs, which is being proven time and time again by research not to work. It actually causes more harm than good. So what happens with the war on drugs is it's misfiring shots at the people who need the support, which is the people struggling in addiction. And it's crazy because all the research says that. I think even in addiction services are great. But what I learned about addiction was focusing on removing the addiction, not on focusing on why. Now, that's not for lack of understanding or want of care. What the problem is that we're faced with it as addiction therapists, which is what I was faced with, is if you remove the addiction. So addiction is an adaptation strategy, an adaptive strategy to whatever's went on underneath, its cause, the root cause. And the problem is, if you deal with the root cause, then you're more likely to relapse off addiction if you're in early stages, or lean into the addiction more. But if you deal with just the addiction, you're not dealing with the root cause, so you're more likely to relapse. So you've got these two really difficult things going on, where it's like if you hit one, the other's going to tip them off. It's really difficult to navigate. So yeah. So what I'm trying to do is come from a research place, which is stabilization. Ashley, wow, can you sing and play guitar? I've just subscribed to you. I used to play guitar and I sing in my shower or my bath very badly. I tried to learn to play guitar when I was younger, but I just didn't commit to it. Right, the medication isn't as strong as your own mind, so really it's a headache. It's a temporary, not a solution. Yeah. Your mind is strong, but also think of your mind like a muscle. So we've got to grow neuroplasticity in our brain. So it's like, it's very similar to like when we're growing muscles, we're tearing the muscles and then we're repairing them. It's the same thing. We've got to like grow the muscles, we've got to grow the mind. So yeah, your mind is much stronger than addiction, but also think of it like a muscle, and you've got to learn like with little recovery reps on how to get to where you want to be. So slowly building up muscle. Any advice for a veteran who just gave up on life? Been off the streets since I left the army, don't know how to cope anymore. James, I used to work for a veteran charity. One thing I will say, James, is there is a lot of charities out there for veterans which are very good, and I can absolutely signpost you to one. The thing is, with veterans, often what's really painful for veterans is you're going into services often when you're really young. So I don't know if you entered when you were 17, but you're going into this military services and then you're getting trained for your brain to be one way, dealing with trauma, and the way that your brain's trained isn't the best way to deal with trauma, and then you're just kind of getting left, which is so shit. But one thing that is good about veterans is you all stick together. So there's a lot of veteran charities where it's often run by veterans. I know the one I worked for was, he didn't even take any money from it, he just worked off his war pension, and he's like, I need to help me brothers. So what I can do is, one, I can sit and give you a one-to-one, and that's for free, and then two, I can try and get you into the right services, and I think hopefully you'll find that helpful, and they can get you into housing, they can get you into counselling, all different things, because that's what you need to attack it from all angles and realise that no wonder you're in that position, because you've had your brain trained like into a machine, which then isn't able to cope with what it's been put through, if that makes sense. Short is saying, I mean, it's better to do recovery without medication, meds, and train the brain. Yes, however, like I said earlier on, I do agree with that. But first of all, with alcohol, we need to remember we might need meds for that. Also, there's no shame in using medication, but we can think of medication as, it doesn't need to be a life sentence. It can be something that helps you for now, if you know what I mean. So like with addiction recovery, just do whatever you've got to do to get through it. So I know people who come out of addiction and go on to weed. Like, great, if that's what you've got to do, that's what you've got to do. Like, if you were a heroin addict or a crack cocaine addict, or I know someone who was an alcohol and cocaine addict, drinking ridiculous amounts, to get off that, you've got to smoke weed. Brilliant. So I will say, train your mind, because then hopefully you'll be able to get to a point of getting off the medication or getting off the weed, but also don't shame yourself if you've got to lean into something. By the way, I'm not promoting getting off drugs with weed. by the way, because then you can have just a weed problem. But I'm saying do whatever you need to do as a person. Just don't shame yourself for it, just you're fighting. Gums, I've got to go. Ashley, talk to you later, and everyone fighting, keep fighting. Yeah, bye, Gums. Thanks for joining if you've not already gone. Aragon is saying, Aragon, hanging around people with addictions like drinkers, capers, etc. doesn't help. Yeah, this is where groups can be really good. Like, there's always that saying that whoever you hang around, you're going to be like. And there's research which backs this up. There's a study that I've talked about called the Bad Apple Study, where basically they plonked somebody who was really negative into a group for only 45 minutes a week. And their productivity and energy levels plummeted from 45 minutes a week. So we tend to, because we're social creatures, we tend to mold together. So there's studies around if you've got somebody who is overweight in a group, you're more likely to have a group of people who are overweight. If you've got somebody who goes to the gym in the group's more likely to go to the gym. So apply that to addiction. Not only are the walking, talking triggers, so that in itself is hard, but if all our friends and people we interact with are addicted, then guess what? If we start to hang around with people who've got sober, aka going to AA groups or NA groups or SMART meetings, guess what? And the thing is, you don't even need to stop to go to these. So you can go to NA and AA online. I'm not promoting that. I'm not a 12-stepper. But you can go to them online and you can just watch. Or you can go to SMART meetings and you can just turn up. You don't even need to get sober. You can just go and be around people who are sober. That is a good first step. Anyways, I'm so tired, guys, and I don't like to stay on longer because my brain turns to mush and I dread to think what kind of unethical shite I'll start telling you. But I'm going to do 2 more things. So, short knowledge. I gave some advice that was a 6-year daily drinking to stop smoking weed for 30 days and stop it, and now he's clean. So I agree with you saying that. Do you mean to stop? Do you mean you told them to smoke weed and then told them to stop that after 30 days? Yeah, the thing is as well, if we are going to do medication, we need to get into a place of we don't want it to be something we're doing full time. Or if it is like we're smoking weed, like don't just start smoking copious amounts of weed. Like try and do it in a way where you're being sparing with it. It's like something I'm going to do when I really need it, because you don't want to end up with a huge weed addiction like that. I know people who've really struggled with huge weed addictions, but yeah, so what Short has said is do it for 30 days and then stop that, so you're like weaning and you can like wean yourself off. But again, I'm not promoting smoking weed. This is I know that a lot of people do that. He did it only at night to sleep. Short knowledge. Yeah, so there's something where you can just like have it as a stopgap. Yeah. Hi, I came off quetiapine, 25 milligrams, and was masking ADHD for 4 years. Aragon. Yeah, I was on quetiapine. It was fucking horrible coming off it. I went cold turkey. I was rattling off it. Yeah, so I got diagnosed with ADHD first. And then basically when the ADHD started getting addressed, then they realised that like bipolar was underneath. When the bipolar started getting addressed, they realised there's autism underneath. So yeah, it is normal for things to like mask other things, because it's really common to have a comorbidity, which is basically a cluster of mental health disorders. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, quetiapine is fucking great. I do it holistically now. And I spoke to someone as well, Aragon. How do you manage your... I assume you have either schizophrenia or bipolar or something for quetiapine? Is it? I don't know what else you would use quetiapine for. Yeah, but I spoke to someone the other day and they're now managing their mental health, which was bipolar, ADHD and anxiety. They put you on quetiapine for that. That's crazy. Sorry, that stopped us in his tracks, because isn't quetiapine a mood stabilizer and antipsychotic? But anyways, I'm not a prescriber. But yeah, I knew somebody who I was speaking to yesterday, and they're managing bipolar holistically, and they're absolutely smashing it. But they've got rid of all things like that. Doctor wanted to cut corners. I cannot understand why they've prescribed you that. Like I say, I'm not a prescriber, but that's an intense drug to prescribe you for ADHD. Anyways, I'm gonna go, but thanks. It's Courtney subbed, and Phoebe G saying, "Are you single?" No, I've got an absolutely lush boyfriend. Oh, anxiety and mania, couldn't sleep for a week at a time. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Anxiety and mania though, is that not bipolar? But anyways, like I say, I don't know why I'm trying to diagnose you. I'm just like taken aback a little bit. But anyways, everybody, it was lovely speaking to you. Aragon, if you want to have a one-to-one, we can have one. And anybody else who, if I've missed your comments and you're wanting some support, just email us at schoolofaddiction.co.uk. I always get back to people, but it takes us a few days. Thank you for everyone who's joined. I go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. GMT time. And if you could give us a subscribe, that's a super free way to help the channel. And if not, just thanks and have a nice day. Bye.